Yeah, I am. Mm, Did I do that? Uh-oh. Did I do that? Uh-oh. Did I do that? Oh. Peace. Peace to the family. Peace, love, and light. Peace, Islam. Hey. Thank you, thank you. That's Lady Genesis. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, y'all. I got an interesting one today. We're going to chop it up. I got some information. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be one of them ones. We're going to take a look at some things. And, you know, I'm going to attempt, as I always do, to help us understand the world a little bit better. I'm telling myself that I have a skill set that I like to share with the world. And that's my ability, right, to make observations that kind of simplify things that would seem to be complex without losing any, oomph. Like, I ain't gonna throw something out just to make something else fit. You know what I'm saying? I'll take the whole thing and condense it and give us an ability to make better, succinct observations. Right? So, lighten a little bit of this Palo Santo just to ease up the tension. Hopefully, wherever you're at, you're doing amazing. I've been in Atlanta. I ain't seen the sun in like 3 or 4 days. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's been weird around here. No sunlight, terrible weather, you know. But it's that time of season, so who are we to complain? Nature doing what nature do. Or is it the man, huh? Is it the man with his technology? He spared us from chemtrails, so here he goes, causing cold weather in autumn seasons. See, that's the issue, right? Every time that we see nature acting unnatural, we automatically fall into our conspiratorial minds. Everything that we can no longer explain is attributed to the boogeyman. And that is the main issue with the brain rot. Did not start from AI. The brain rot started when it opened up the floodgates of information, right? And then people started accessing information that they weren't yet qualified for. That's where the brain rot started, with the inundation of information on the information highway. This is where the traffic jam started. You feel me? You're feeling melancholy because of the weather, and you're in Oregon. Oregon is beautiful. Shout out to Oregon. They call it God's country for a reason. It's normally not cold in Oregon during this time of season, because maybe we're just spoiled, right? I do remember it being progressively cold during this time in different parts of the country, regardless of whether it was Atlanta weather or not. When New Yorkers started coming to Atlanta, they brought the weather with them. So Atlanta weather has not been Atlanta weather for the longest time anyway, right? So who are we to complain? It's 50-something degrees and it's a few days away from November. Like, that's not unnormal, right? It's just maybe not consistent with other years. But again, we're going to fall to conspiracy first before we just say that this is a natural occurrence, before we go to Google and do a Google search, because now you got AI, and it could give you a comparative analysis of all of the October 30ths for the last 10 or 15 years, right? Now, granted, I'm being told that this is a result of Hurricane Melissa and the outer winds and the outer belt of Hurricane Melissa, and that very well can be true. I just find it odd that the sun is going to be out in the Caribbean before it's out in Atlanta. And we're 3,500 feet up in the mountains. You know what I'm saying? Landlocked. But this is the way that continental drifts happen in terms of winds and things of that nature. But that's just a small observation. We're going to get a little bit deeper, right, as we progressively go along here on this amazing Thursday. Every day this strong has felt like a weekend, or strong and Saturday or Sunday. Today's no difference. What does today feel like where you're at? Because it definitely does not feel like Thursday. Oh, you you booked a flight back to Houston, to Texas, should we say, where presumably is warmer for now. It's going to be a cold winter, y'all. And we say this every winter, and it's not to scare people. But, that's what winter is. You know what I'm saying? It feels like a Monday for y'all. Yeah, I normally celebrate Mondays. Mondays are normally the high point of my strong. So it feels like how Mondays normally used to feel, right? The gloominess of what we attribute Mondays for. Oh, y'all got some sun out in Memphis. Shout out to Memphis, right? I want to be talking about Memphis very shortly. Every day been feeling like Sunday. Yeah, like I literally woke up the other day and I had to Uber convince myself that it was Tuesday and not Saturday or Sunday, because it felt like a Saturday and then it felt like a Sunday. And we discredit how important the sun is in our lives, how important the sun is with ushering in not just a new day, but the new energy that comes with the day. Because there's a metaphysical and a biological import to what the sun brings when the sun comes. Interestingly enough, I saw this on the lawn last week, and I shared it, and I was attempting to make sense of it. And it was like, this is a natural occurrence. And I'm like, I don't remember seeing this. You know what I mean? And again, maybe it's just me. I'm not the most nature-inclined person. I'm very much a city slicker, attempting to break myself out of it and acclimate myself to things, to me in a country that might be like phenomenal. But some people, they might be like, nigga, why you making a big deal about that? Like, that's just natural out here. And I'm like, all right, well, I grew up in an artificial environment the majority of my life, so I'm not used to natural, okay? I'm getting acclimated to natural. I have a whole renewed appreciation for natural because I have not been exposed to natural all my life. I've been exposed to a concrete jungle, artificial environment. You know what I'm saying? And the things that I've been told and the things that I've learned have been artificial based on that environment. And I'm doing the best that I can in public to unlearn, to relearn in real time, while also I've been given the amazing opportunity to teach in the process of going through that, right? So that takes a lot of wherewithal, that you got to have a lot of patience for somebody that's learning on the fly, late term, but then also wants to teach while they're learning. So I just thought, to me, that looked a lot like a black hole, that it looked like a galaxy. You know what I'm saying? And I saw this last week, and it gave me an inclination. And I'm like, I didn't know that nature naturally forms like that. You feel me? What it really looked like to me, though, was a hurricane. And this was before I knew anything about Melissa. Impending, the impending arrival of Melissa. I didn't know about it. But it reminded me specifically of that. So nature gives you signs and signals that things are about to occur, that things are coming. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the family in Jamaica. Shout out to the family in Cuba. Shout out to the Caribbean family. Shout out to you enduring, resilient, melanated people. These seafaring and seafaring people that, again, show us the resilience of melanin under pressure, defying the odds, right? We salute you and we extract that efficiency and that energy from you. Our prayers are with our family in Venezuela. Our prayers are with our family in Colombia. Our prayers are with our families throughout the entire Americas, right? Our prayers are with our families in the favelas of Brazil. Our prayers are with all indigenous people everywhere on the planet. Our prayers are with the Sudanese. Our prayers are with Congo. Our prayers are with the families in New Orleans, Memphis, Chicago, all of these places that have been designated by administration as being, hotbeds of criminal activity and that have been designated for military action, right? Our prayers are with our people wherever our people are at, and all indigenous people globally are our people, regardless of the stripe, tradition, right? If you not them, then you us, right? And if I have to explain to you who them is, nigga, then you not us, right? Point blank period. Point blank period. So yeah, it's like nature has ways of showing up and getting you ready, for the inevitable. And we're thankful for the inevitable. We grow with the inevitable, right? I wanna self-correct myself because we can do that as well, right? And when I jump out on a limb, I tell you that I'm jumping out on a limb. And sometimes it's ego, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I really feel that I'm on to something, but I'm not always right. And I always say that I'm always right, but I'm not always right. And that's a part of, that's a part of learning. You learn on the fly. And I feel that every single day we have somatic deaths. And we die and we wake up and we're new people with a new renewed understanding. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at the World Series play out, and I was like, okay, I may have made a miscalculation, right? I may have made a miscalculation because I totally overplayed the chain of events that was going to take place yesterday. And that to me speaks more preeminently to what might be going on. And this might have nothing to do with nothing. It might only register in the realm of entertainment for some people. And they like, Pill, you tripping, man. There's more important things going on in the world. And I'm like, granted, there are. But I just read this amazing definition on conspiracy theorists and how the brains of conspiracy theorists are orientated. And I'm no longer, I don't feel no way about calling myself a conspiracy theorist because this country is being run by conspiracy theorists. And the world is being run by conspiracy theorists, right? Conspiracies run the planet at this particular time. So it ain't even like, are you a conspiracy theorist? It's the pedigree of your conspiracy. They like, nigga, what conspiracy do you have, right? You're going to be judged by the conspiracies that you harbor and that you house, or the conspiracy communities that you belong to, right? The veracity and the audacity of your conspiracies are going to be the determining factor in the near coming future. And I happen to belong to a conspiracy community that, both prepare me for the present time that we live in and also undermine me for the present time that we live in. You know what I'm saying? Because of the condition of the conspiracies that we have been exposed to, right? Some of us have been properly prepared to deal with conspiracy in a way in which we can convert conspiracy into capital And other people have been, pretty much undermined by the conspiracies that they've been exposed to because they have not been given any sort of compass on how to navigate this very complex world of conspiracy, right? Some people have only been exposed to one coin, one side of the conspiracy, and not both. To find their way in the middle, because that's the best place to be in this advancing world that is being run off of conspiracy. You have to find a middle ground, right? And don't ascribe to any of it, right? Be in the world but not of it, right? Be be an observer of the conspiracy, but do not get trapped in a rabbit hole. You feel me? Because some people are getting stuck there and they're not going to make their way back, right? Unfortunately. And again, just as a word of advice, feel me? Some of these conspiracies have something to do with us, and it's rewarding to know your way around it. And some of them, don't even waste time with it because it's going to consume you altogether. Shout out to my brothers Noble and Pooh and Minister Drew. They had me on their program last night, and it was a high honor of mine. That's the sound of horse food. Hug really good. I found a clip, but anyway, it was amazing. It was an amazing program, an amazing opportunity, and they asked me some astounding questions. And one of the questions at the end of the bill, they said, who would be my Mount Rushmore? And I had to be inclusive of 4 people, you know what I'm saying, who I consider to be on my Mount Rushmore. And I wish that I had more opportunities to put other people up there. And shout out to them because they allowed me a 2-for-1 package. So I was able to bundle me and Red into one as a purple pill and give us a position on the mountain. And this is Scorpio season, so it's not, you don't have to exhibit any hubris in Scorpio, right? You could be totally self-consumed and you pay for your sins later. But I don't even think that I'm self-consumed by saying I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Red. You know what I mean? Red is like the other part of my brain that, maybe I don't get along with all the time. And, you know what I'm saying, I be wanting to dim the lights of it sometime, but it's necessary and it's needed. And I learned a lot from Red. And Red goes places that I normally wouldn't go. So I'm able to learn from him things that I possibly couldn't teach myself because I wouldn't force myself to do those things. You know what I mean? So Red finds himself in spaces and places where he's able to extract information that I would not voluntarily go. You know what I'm saying? And I was learning up until like the day of from Red. I learned a lot from Red. You feel me? I learned a lot about myself from Red. And then I had to be inclusive of Mama Pill because your mother's your first teacher. And I learned from my mother good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. It's not all colorful. It's not all beautiful. But it's all necessary and it's all lessons because I am the matriculation of my mitochondrial DNA. Yeah, I got 26 chromosomes from my father, but I learned a lot from my mother, you know what I'm saying, on this journey. And like I said, I'm not even talking about all of the colorful shit that you might hear and see. I'm talking about everything, right? You learn about your insecurities. You learn about your shortcomings. You learn about your selfishness. You learn about everything if you're able to make observations with a person in your life who gave you life. You know what I'm saying? So I had to acknowledge my first teacher being my mother. And then when the inevitable happens, and I don't want to speak because we're in Scorpio season, but I have to be real. with the reality that at some point, and maybe hopefully, God willing, I will be granted the opportunity to still be alive, right? And my mother not have to bury me. So even at a time when you lose a parent, that's the illest lesson of all, right? And no one outside of yourself can teach you how to overcome grief and to transmute pain to that degree. No one else can show you the importance of letting go, right? No one else can show you that. So my mother is bound to teach me a lesson that is the illest lesson of all time. So I had to put her up there. And I didn't even blink to make sure that I made mention of Bobby Hemmett, right? Bobby Hemmett, throughout the pantheon of all other teachers, and not to take anything away from anybody else, right? It's just a certain criteria that goes into my particular observation of who I would put on my Mount Rushmore. It would have to be, if it were between all of them, and if it was one slot left, it goes to Bobby Hemmett in my pantheon, in my observation. And I say that because I continue to learn from Bobby to this day, and Bobby's not physically present, but I will turn on a lecture, and that lecture will be from Bobby from 20 years ago, but it will be about today. And that is the sort of teacher that I want to be with my information, because I be throwing my shoulder out and I be on a limb sometimes speaking about things that maybe 5 people in the audience get, you know what I'm saying? And I'm part of a contingency where they tell me, right? Like, I remember when they was considering bringing me into the Shifters, right? And they was like, nigga, like, so there was people in their audience that was asking them, like, why is he with y'all? He don't have the same amount of followers, right? He's not as popular as his brother. He don't have the views. And I'm like, I brought this nigga in. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't matter because post 2016, right? And I credit Polite with Polite paradigm shifted this entire community, and he changed the value system. You know what I'm saying? He changed the value system, and he was not polite about it. You feel me? He really leaned in, and he separated the wheat from the chaff by saying, yo, you should have X amount of screen time if your views is up. Like the shit that they doing now in battle rap, right? Where the metric or the measuring stick that they use is your views, right? Your viewability. How much do the people like you, right? That's what was going on in consciousness. And he utilized finances to juxtapose the old world against the new world, the emerging realm of, quote unquote, the conscious community that was youth-based, right? The shit that we was advocating for, the door that we opened, and the energy that we initially brought in with the youthful energy, that energy ended up cannibalizing the old world or the old community, because they introduced new metrics for validity and value, and it was all based on tangibles such as viewership, followings, right? Virality. Like, is this clip gonna go viral? Are we gonna get the views? So when the shit became part of the internet and the internet age, it operated by totally new metrics, and it pushed a lot of people out, or at least pushed them to the side. And then pushing them to the side kind of watered down their viability, right? Or it became very dismissive of their effectiveness, right? And then a whole new world formed around this new progression of how you value the information, the teacher, and the information that's coming from the teacher. Because if you don't value the teacher, whatever's coming from the teacher will never be valued. You know what I'm saying? So he was partially responsible for that. So I found myself in a whole new reality that I inadvertently helped create, and then I was being subjected to it. You know what I'm saying? Because now I was up for review. Like, why should we have him as part of what we got going on? You know what I'm saying? If he don't got these numbers or those numbers, and I'm like, yeah, none of my prophecies matter. None of the genesis and the origins of the community, none of that shit even mattered anymore. You know what I'm saying? It was like, nigga, who are you now and what do you mean to the culture? Right? I remember I had another one of these incidents in 2006 with Brother Rich. He was vending downtown Brooklyn, and that's my old stomping grounds, you know? So I was like, let me pull up on a homie, see what's going on. And he had an amazing stand out there, and he had a great audience. He had a crowd that would come out and hang out with him there, pull up on him. They had amazing bills outside and everything. And he asked me to do something for him, to create a poster that had graphics that would be more engaging for his audience. He wanted to stop people in their traffic. So I had to come up with a visual, a graphic that was compelling, that would stop people in their tracks. So this one I came up with the visual of before, after, and way after. It's a very famous picture that went super viral on the internet. And I made it before the internet age, right? I didn't even make it for the internet. I made it for IRL, in real life. I made it for audiences moving up and down downtown Brooklyn, right, doing commerce. I had to create a visual to stop them in their tracks. And it was Orset and Hyrule. And then it was a picture of the Black Madonna in Child. And then there was a picture of the white Madonna with Caesar Borgia, right? Little white Jesus, blue-eyed devil, right? And that image went super viral in the streets. And then I think in the beginning of the internet era or phase or days, you know, when consciousness came online, that picture made its way to the internet. And that shit has been super viral. They break it out every Christmas, right? So I remember he asked me to do that, and I didn't do it in the right amount of time, something like that. So I'm downtown and I run into him, and he's like, who are you? What have you done in this community? And I was like, me? I started this shit. Like, what are you talking about? And then I realized that nobody told my origin story. And my unwillingness to tell it myself, because I was in the music industry at this point as well. So I was doing my blue pill thing in the music industry, right? Attempting to do, my master teachers told me, go and find somebody in the music industry that could reach 1 million people rather than you exhausting yourself trying to reach 1 million people. So I was doing my job in the industry, you know. I was on assignment, if you will. I thought that when I was away doing my work, though, that people would tell my story. Nobody was telling my story. You know what I'm saying? So I had to forcefully tell my own story because I had been written out of this shit. And it was only 5 or 6 years in, and I had already been written over. They was already telling their own version of the story, and I was nowhere to be included. But that's my fault. Because I told them, like, look, y'all could say that I was here, or y'all could not say that I was here. It don't even matter. The fact that we got this shit up and going, you know what I'm saying? That's the important part. But as noble as that gesture was, yeah, the young man asked me, what did I do to contribute to this community, as if I was just a nigga popping up. So I'm like, you got to tell your own stories, right? And the community is a community that's run on stories. But I was speaking last night with them about something that we call the conscious tropes. So there's tropes, there's conspiracies, right, that are integral to this community, that are like the glues of this community. You feel me? So here goes a conscious trope that's very popular, right? White folks have a decalcified pineal gland. You know what I'm saying? And we don't, even though we all drink fluoride water, right? That's a conscious trope. You know what I'm saying? It cannot necessarily be proven. There's not enough metric proof that we have to say, can you qualify that statement? Is it scientific, or is it just a conscious trope? It's just some shit that we just say amongst ourselves to make ourselves feel good. It's just some shit that we say amongst ourselves to make ourselves feel good, because we don't necessarily have proof. Nor do we have enough of an example of what it looks like from a community that does have an operable pineal gland, right? Because we don't have research papers. We don't have published books necessarily that outline our theosophy, our theology, our ideologies, right? We don't necessarily have these things. We haven't built anything that rivals anything that we speak about, that we built 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. We are basically a community that is impressed upon itself to prove to the rest of the world what we did 3,000 years ago. And then we have to prove that we are those people who did those things, rather than leaning on the fact that we are a totally new people, right? And embracing that and seeing what comes with that. And I think that's why a lot of us are bumping our heads about these origins of who we are, who we think we are. You know, let me see. How can I say this, man, without getting in trouble? Yeah, these are some difficult conversations to have. But it's Scorpio season. You know. I don't know. I'm just not ready to have certain conversations yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not ready to have certain conversations yet, right? With all due respect, because there's still certain things that need to be done in terms of repairing these broken bonds that we have in the indigenous communities. You feel me? And I don't want to start creating more breakage or give people talking points as an excuse for why they don't want to see one another on par. Right? Yeah, shout out to Professor Jang. I've learned a lot from him. And when I've learned from him, I always, I sit back and I be like, damn, what if I was exposed to a teacher like that for the last 15 or 20 years that did not interject their ego, that did not interject their personality into teaching, that didn't have an agenda, that was totally neutral and just wanted to disseminate information. You know how much bullshit I've been able to throw out in the last 2 or 3 months because of Professor Jang? You know what I'm saying? It's not on Professor Jang to necessarily tell you, you got to use your Blue's Clues to figure out and find out and fill in the blanks yourself. The chronology of history that he's given us, right? Our ability to see certain things for what there are, and their confirmations, because there's not too much that I've learned from Professor Jang that I was not hip to. Although he was the first one that explained that Muhammad was a Messiah initially to the Jewish people. I had not heard that perspective, and I can't unhear it once I heard it, because it's the illest shit ever, right? And all of those Abrahamic religions are contingent on one big lie. And if you start defragmenting that one lie, all of this shit falls apart. So I haven't gone there yet. Scorpio season is going to be a long season, so I don't think I'm going to leave Scorpio without going there. I might wait for Sagittarius, but we taking somebody down, goddammit. These motherfucking arrows is coming out, and these stingers is getting sharpened. And once you take down one of them shits, the rest of them shits come down, right? And I don't want to, I don't want to come across as a total heretic, because I got so many friends that are part of these traditional systems, and their identities are tied up into these shits. So I'm still attempting to be as respectful as possible. You know what I'm saying? Granted, but we're going to have some real tough conversations, especially when this shit gets super crazy and niggas' stomachs start touching their backs. And I don't want to say, I'm not being facetious by saying that either. I don't have the wherewithal. This is the wrong time for me to get on camera and be like, told you so. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to refrain from that. And I don't have the wherewithal to speak about anybody that receives assistance from the government. I will say this, though. When I was speaking in January, no, fuck that. When I've been speaking for the last 10 years about putting respect on MLK's name, right? And people push back and they give me the conscious tropes, right? There's conscious tropes that niggas always push back to with, right? Oh, King is a sellout. He's boule. He brought us into a burning house. And I always would say, nigga, it's been 55 plus years. If you still are burning in that fucking house, my nigga, you a punk ass nigga. Stop blaming King so many years removed from what you saying was a setup, and you benefit from it. The blood and the sacrifice of a whole king, right? And again, this ain't what Professor Jang was talking about. He said that the God of the Bible and King David have two things in common: a poetic God and a poetic king. So the whole world has been finessed by a book of poetry by some poets, right? Let's be clear. This man was not a poet, right? Even though he had one hell of a game, he fulfilled a prophetic prophecy that we can see in real time. And Memphis, Kemet, is where kings go to transition and die and transmute, right? In Memphis, Tennessee, we saw the same with our king named Michael, just like D'Angelo and the rest of them, these archangels. You feel me? So we learning some dirt about King. His name was Michael. He's not supposed to be all the way light. He has to have some dark, just like Michael Jackson, just like all of them, right? Just like all of them. Okay? But his sacrifice, the blood that he spilled, right, creates these social systems that came out of the Great Society Act, right? So let's go to Google. And again, I'm not being facetious by saying, let's do some homework, let's do some studying, let's look at this shit. So I'm not just sitting here talking to you out the side of my mouth like I'm smarter than you, that I know something, right? No, I defer to the experts, right? I just remember this shit from researching it enough that I was like, oh shit. When I learned about it, I was like, oh shit. Right? And then I put the timelines together because I was one of those children that grew up on Eyes on the Prize documentary. And I wasn't raised in a civil rights household, but I was raised to respect civil rights and the sacrifices that melanated people made around this country, regardless of whether my mother was from here or not, right? I was raised to love Black America before I knew that the name was Moorish, okay? I was raised to love melanated people for their sacrifice before I knew anything else, right? I was taught about Black inventors, and before I was given the option to say that you should name the Moorish inventors, and the shit don't sound the same, right? Anyway, The Great Society program became LBJ. So LBJ, not LeBron James. We're talking about Lyndon Baines Johnson, who becomes the president after they take out JFK, which is the first documented, and it's not the first documented conspiracy, or when they said that the word was heard in public. They're lying to us once again. That's another part of the conspiracy, right? It's not. It's just not, my nigga. Right? The concept conspiracy theorist or conspiracy, it comes from the protocols of the Elders of Zion, right? Which comes from Europe. They were utilizing that word in the 40s before they came out in the 60s with JFK. Okay? So that's a lie that they told us. Once again, they lied about the lie on top of a lie. So LBJ, right, comes in after JFK gets taken down on November 22nd, right, on the 33rd parallel in Dallas. Okay? And they come up with legislation to appease melanated people, right? Because, and this is a clown comparison, right? Peace, my brother. This is a somewhat of a clownish comparison. But let's say how Ye had access to the first Trump White House and he could pull up on them, right? Because Ye was apolitical, so this is not a political agenda, but we just seen him have access. That's the same way that MLK had access, right? That they was going to the White House, they were pushing, legislation, and they were utilizing the media apparatus to get things done, right? They were putting pressure on them, okay? And LBJ passes this particular piece of legislation, which creates the social programs in this country to appease melanated people, right, who were asking for assistance, or the people who were advocating for them were asking for assistance because they were just brought into the fold, right? And they were brought into the fold, but they had all of these many years behind them that they did not have adequate, equitable access, right? So they needed a little something extra to get them on board. So the Great Society began Johnson's agenda for Congress in January 65: aid and education, attack on disease, Medicaid, urban renewal, beautification, conservation, development of depressed regions, a wide-scale fight against poverty, control and prevention of crime and delinquency, and removal of obstacles for the right to vote, right? This gets Medicaid, Social Security Act comes after this, right? This is where you get welfare, okay? This is where you get HUD, Medicaid and Medicare, Job Corps, Head Start, right? Legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Acts of 1965. All of this stuff that they're repealing now, knocking them down one by one like dominoes, right? As the Republicans have always promised that they would do. After the Dixiecrats or the Deep Southern Democrats, right, were able to flip the vote and bring melanated people into a party that was not traditionally one that catered to melanated people. The first coup that happened in this country happened in Wilmington, North Carolina in the late 1800s, and it happens, this when the South becomes the Deep South, and this happens by way of the Dixiecrats, who were Democrats, right? That melanated Republicans were running things in that particular part of the country, and this is how they overthrew them. Okay? So we were not historically always Democrats. You feel me? That happens with our people being enthralled by JFK. You know what I'm saying? So they're not even reporting history the way that they're supposed to be reported, because I can simplify it for you. This administration came in under the leadership of Russell Vought, who was the architect of Project 2025 And in that report, in that thousand page documentary that we told y'all last year to read, right? Because you could have put it in the AI. The AI could have simplified it for you and gave you all of the bullet points, my nigga. You didn't have to sit there and read the whole shit, right? We would say, yeah, this administration is coming to remove everything that was done in the Great Society Act, right? So making America great again is making America before the Great Society Act. It's not that fucking difficult to see, right? Instead of confusing people and complicating it with all of this extra shit. So what does it say? There were environmental protection laws. They did away with that. Landmark land conservation measures. They did away with that. The profoundly influential Immigration Act. They did away with that. Bills establishing a National Endowment for the Arts and a National Endowment for the Humanities. They did away with that. A Highway Safety Act. Maybe not so much. The Public Broadcasting Act. They did away with that. A bill to provide consumers with some protection against shoddy goods and dangerous products. They did away with that. Why is it so difficult to explain certain things? Why is it so difficult? Simplify this shit. Direct it to where it needs to go. It's an attack on the Great Society Act, right? Fast forward to now, and then you see the complications and the intricacies, because the government shutdown allegedly is about the Affordable Care Act, which is called the Obamacare Act. But interestingly enough, when we speak about healthcare in this country, healthcare was dramatically changed by a man named Abraham Flexner, right? Let's go to Flexner. Flexner, right? One man, because they always tell you that one person can't make a difference in this country. They always tell you how ineffective one person is because they don't want one person to make positive change. So they tell you that one person is incapable of making change. But there's many people in history that we could speak of. One person who fucked it up for everybody. Right? So Flexner creates something called a Flexner Report that was published in 1910. And this report was commissioned by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, right? And it evaluated the quality of medical education in our country. It was written by Abraham Flexner, a Jewish educator and reformer. Okay? A Jewish educator and a reformer. Impact on black medical schools. The report found that many black medical schools had inadequate faculties, low standards, and lacked research capabilities. His recommendations were largely followed, leading to the closure of several black medical schools. That's several. Every one of them except for two of them. Right? The closure of black medical schools reduced the number of black physicians in the U.S. It also made it difficult for black students to obtain medical training. The report's findings were based on racial stereotypes and contributed to the legacy of racial inequity in healthcare, right? Flexner report's impact on black medical school is still felt to this day. All right? So not only did this one person who was funded by the Rockefellers, not only did this one person's report, because he said that black doctors were best qualified in areas of sanitation, right? And the only thing that they should be responsible for is to keep black disease out of white communities, right? Because they had a running stereotype that we were infecting them with disease, unlike what they did when they came to the Americas and spread disease to everyone and killed off populations, right? The nerve and the caucasity of them, but they got away with it, right? They got away with it. Abraham Flexner in the black medical schools, right? One person's report decimated, and not only did they decimate majority of the melanated medical schools, right? This is why Black Wall Street is so important. or Morris Wall Street or whatever you want to call that shit, right? White Wall Street, call it whatever you want to call it, right? But the impact of it, why it's so predominant of a flex, is because our melanated people, regardless of whether they were the direct Cherokee, whether they were the enslaved, tribe, slaves of the Cherokee, nigga, whoever they was, we know that they got to Oklahoma barefoot, right? Walking through a trail of tears. And they got there to Providence because they ended up on a land that was oil rich, and they ran off a land that was gold rich. You understand? But they were able to, however they did it, because no one still explains this. How did they become the top doctors in the country if they were not going to medical school? And what sort of time period was it that they were able to go to school, get the certifications, become masters in their craft, and build hospitals? No one's doing the knowledge the right way, my nigga. Right? How you gonna go from a slave to a head doctor and become the envy of the country and get your shit burnt down and rebuild it? And then not only do our people not know about this, right? Their people didn't know about it, meaning that the first generation removed from those people don't even know their history. They were not taught their history. You feel me? But they still responded in a way in which they were productive to a degree. It's still in them. So it's still got to be in you. But look up Flexner. So the illest part of this is that when you look and going to do the knowledge, right, about how deep this shit, how deep the barrel well goes. You feel me? You can show and prove and see to yourself that Obama, yeah, that nigga, right? Barry, right? Barry is a relative of Rockefeller, okay? "17 cousins removed." Ironically, right? Ironically, Obama's directly related to Rockefeller, right? Let me see this. Boom, Barack Obama. Discuss Barack Obama. Okay? He's part of the Rockefeller bloodline, right? He's the 17th cousin, 4 times removed from John D. Rockefeller. So ironically, the person Rockefeller who's responsible for the Flexner report that decimated melanated medicine in this country. So it's not just we have medical schools. We're speaking about alternative medicine, which is primary medicine. We're speaking about herbology. We're speaking about the shit that your nanas and them used to do to cure you. We're speaking about indigenous medicines. You feel me? Destroyed and decimated it where it only made it accessible for allopathic medicine, meaning that we was only dealing with chemicals and petroleum byproducts that are known as pharmaceuticals now. The shit that didn't work during C-19. So the irony of it is that Obama comes president in the 44th and creates Obamacare around the same medical establishment that his cousin 17 times removed was responsible for starting and creating. And now there's a logjam in society because the Republicans want to remove Obamacare as the last vestige of erasure that this man was actually present as your president doing the shit that he did, because they have to, by any and all means, remove the psychosis from their brain that created a fucking malware short circuit in their whole program to say, how are we white nationalists with a black president? Just a Harvard graduate with a black family. who's going to Kemet speaking about the Moorish origins of this country in front of the Arab nation. Y'all didn't catch that though, huh? Y'all totally missed when he did that shit. Oh, you didn't get brought into the conspiracy yet. Right? So now we are in a country that's openly run now by conspiracy theorists because they can't keep it bottled in no more. They don't have the time or the wherewithal to do that. Their psychosis has them in a way in which they have to respond accordingly, or they're going to short circuit and go batshit crazy, more crazy than they already are, because their truths got challenged. Right? When your truths got challenged, what did you do? Right? In our community, we created conscious tropes to make ourselves feel better about ourselves because we was at our lead low. So we had to create conscious tropes. You know what I'm saying? Black man is God. That's a conscious trope. And I'm not saying that there's no validity to it, right? But we don't deal with it scientifically enough where we're leading with science. We lead with statements. They're called platitudes. Those are conscious tropes, right? Because one does not explain the other. It's like, damn, well, if the black man is God, then how is he being led by someone that's subordinate to God? It's a conscious trope. They don't ever give you the other part of the coin. Right? Well, you know, it's like rapture and it's like the Bible because the devil got 1,000 years of rulership and the shit was over in the 1900s, but they still. It's a conscious trope, right? It does not do a lot to explain what the fuck we're going through right now. It doesn't address the obvious. Okay? So, an amazing article came out that I came across that I highly recommend, and it comes from MIT. So these supposed to be the smart people, right? MIT Technology Review. It's never been easier to be a conspiracy theorist, right? Hold on 1 second, y'all. Yeah, this article, it comes heavily recommended, right? And read this, and then we could have. I started writing a book in February this year called "There's a Thin Line Between MAGA and Woke," and yeah, it dawned on me when I was looking at the day after the Super Bowl. Ironically enough, a bunch of tweets went out by C.K. Kirkland. And C.K. Kirkland was the one who was telling Trump that Kendrick was dissing him, right? And Kendrick is a woke artist. So C.K. Kirkland, who you guys might know as, that other name. I don't even mention that shit, right? That I don't respect the motherfucker to the degree that I won't even say the name, okay? But Candace Owen did a program the other day, and interestingly enough, she gives their back history in 2018, and it all revolved around Kanye, right? They were listening to Kanye, same way that our community was listening to Kanye, and they were being introduced to Kanye. They were being introduced to certain conspiracy tropes by Kanye by listening to Kanye, right? After he had, in 2016, his meltdown. They call it the moment, the moment in the Matrix. It was in Sacramento, California, I believe. He had a meltdown at the St. Pablo tour. This is when he started going at Jay-Z and Beyonce, right? His programming started cracking, and he started speaking openly about his handlers and what they was going to do to him. And then they grabbed him off stage. Yeah, they hit him with the tranquilizer, right? They hit him with the tranquilizer, and then they sent him to a nut house. Then he came back in December. It had to be during Sagittarius season because it was a Gemini full moon, and Trump had been elected in November, but he was doing the transition at Trump Plaza, and Kanye shows up with the swollen face, with the blonde hair, with the pink streaks in it, right? Off the elephant juice. And this when he shows up at Trump Tower and we find out that he's a Trumper, okay? So this is that moment. That was 2016. They said that they started listening to his music, and C.K. Kirkland gets initiated into hip hop, and Kanye is his favorite artist, right? So this nigga who's just getting into hip hop, who's just becoming, who was a barb, right? He outed himself as a barb, and Nick Fuentes got he has a clip on the internet on YouTube tearing down Candace Owen because she outed her best friend as a barb, and Nick Fuentes, and again, y'all, you have to understand the contradictions that exist within this conspiracy-addled community. And the globe is a conspiracy-addled community at this point, right? There's some conspiracies that we share, and there's some conspiracies that are to the super extreme far left and some to the super extreme far right. But if we look at the 2000s, right? Just presidential elections, all of them have been run by conspiracies, or run and won by conspiracies. Run and won by conspiracies, right? What was the conspiracy to put Barack Obama in the office, right? 9/11, right? 9/11 was the conspiracy that put Barack Obama in office. We can no longer trust white men to run this country because they ran it into a hole, and they did their conspiracy so bad that they left everything viewable to those who knew what they were looking at. We need someone else to restore the confidence in the republic, right? And the Moors were on the way in the middle of what was called the Crusades. Can't make this up, right? And the Moors were pressing the line with this information about this being a de facto corporation, the same thing that Elon Musk would say on stage earlier this year, okay? De facto corporation, okay? Right? But the Moors actually had the proof, and they were knocking on some of the right doors, asking for redress, and they had the ability to go a little bit further, right, than, let's say, the quote-unquote black scholars did, because they had finally cracked the code on the code, right? Which in this particular case, for lack of a better term, let's say it's nationality, right? Because here we go right back to the nation and nationality, right? And now they are obscuring that with white nationality or white nationalism, as opposed to the Moors version that told you, oh no, nationality, free white persons is totally different than the subjugated title that they created called black, right? And they started telling you about birth certificates and everything. And they were extracting a lot of this information from the underground white nationalists. How do I know? Because I know where they was getting the receipts from, right? I know where they was getting the receipts from. Shout out to my brother Rikers, right? So 9/11 is the conspiracy that gets Obama in office, right? And ironically, and it tells you they vote for a man who has the middle and the last name of both countries that they're at war with. Obama sounded a lot like Osama, and Hussein was the last name of Saddam. So it tells you how bad that, quote-unquote, Bush bundled or fumbled the, quote-unquote, the office of presidency in this country. If a melanated man named Obama can come in behind him, pause, and gain the quote-unquote leadership role, then they were doing this demonstrably bad, disastrous, the worst ever, right? It couldn't get no worse than this. This is why Republicans have distanced themselves and disowned the Bushes. You feel me? And an entirely new version of them had to rise up. So then what drives the conspiracy that puts Trump in office, right? Trump was a truther at first, right? So the truthers are what? The 9/11 conspiracy community, okay? The 9/11 conspiracy community is called truthers. Trump was a main truther at one point. Then Trump becomes a birther, okay? So this is a conspiracy that was concocted during Obama's presidency that attempted to delegitimize his presidency by saying that he was not born here and he was a Kenyan national, and they had a birth certificate to prove it, right? They bring the birth certificate up, or the White House produces a birth certificate, which they show as a botched version of it on Photoshop, and what happens? The same day they go and they capture Osama, right, with the Team 6, okay? So as a result, they obfuscate the conversation once again and push it to the margins because they have their president doing something that is, supposed to be heralded to a degree that you can no longer question him. You know what I'm saying? Because he has done the most patriotic thing ever and caught the main enemy of the U.S. regime, right? So he is to be celebrated, and his detractors are to be silenced, right? So Trump rallies the troops, you know what I'm saying? And he runs on this particular conspiracy, okay? Ironically enough, he gets to the finish line almost right around the time of the presidency. I think that it was around October, right? The Podesta files come out, okay? WikiLeaks drops the emails, right? And the Podesta files come out. The Podesta files now open a conspiracy called Pizzagate, okay? Pizzagate is a profound conspiracy that combines and confounds these other particular conspiracies that are going on right at this particular time that we later on get repackaged and introduced to as the cabal. Okay? So these are the elite who are eating children and spirit cooking for adrenochrome, right? So this is where QAnon comes out of. Later on, right, as the underground conspiratorial network that involves someone named Q, who we find out is the security clearance, right? Let's go to top secret security clearances, right? Because y'all remember how the briefs were coming, right? Y'all remember how the briefs were coming? They were all coming as if they were security clearances. And we find out that top secret is the lowest security clearance of them all, right? I just saw an amazing presentation earlier. He spoke about there being 30-something security clearances over top secret. Top secret is the lowest at the metrics, and it's called Q. So what happened to Q, right? Right? The conspiratorial community that made up the alt-right, right? Because alt-right comes into prominence at this time, right? So you get the alt-right, you get the Tea Party first, they become the alt-right, right? They graduate after Charlottesville. This is where you get your Nick Fuentes, this is where you get your C.K. Kirklands, right? This is where all of them shits come down. So let me see, did I grab this? My bad. I'm going to go back. Did I grab this? Oh, let's go here with it. No, not yet. We'll get back to that. Let's go back to this. The new conspiracy age, right? The new conspiracy age. Here we are, right? You have to have a conspiracy going forward. it just now determines what conspiracy, what community do you belong to this conspiratorial. Are you dealing with the supreme conspiracies? Or are you dealing with inferior, old, played out conspiracies? Which one is it? Are you dealing with conscious tropes, my nigga? Are you dealing with woke tropes? Which one are you dealing with? Right? Where are you at with your conspiracies? No, we're talking about the occultism behind all of this. Absolutely, we are. There's no way not to, right? So we find out about the security clearances, and they're profound, right? But we know that Q is the lowest of the security clearances. Okay? See if I can pull this up for y'all. Give me a second. Humans. That Drewski skit is crazy. That Drewski skit is crazy.
All right, this week Burger was.
I didn't share it. Trying to find this thing for y'all where they start breaking down the security clearances, and they tell you how far up they go, and the president has no access to these top security clearances. Now, to be dismissive of conspiracy and just to speak, quote unquote, to be a straight shooter, Stephen Greer, right, giving credit to Stephen Greer was saying this, right, ad nauseum last year this time, right? He was going on almost everything, all of these podcasts that we could think of, right? And he was laying out the fact that there's a transnational military industrial complex that is running, the secret space program that none of the politicians have access to. So when I seen him put Pete Hegseth in charge of the military, right, I'm like, what, where are they attempting to go with this, right? And you have to understand that they also refer to top tier security clearances as crypto, because we live in a cryptocracy, right? Let's look up the definition of cryptocracy. And this is how they cooking us, right? And I'm not saying nothing about I'm not speaking negative about cryptocurrency or the crypto market or none of that stuff. I'm just telling you what I already know, right, about this research, because these are the books that I'm writing. We live in a cryptocracy, and a cryptocracy is a shadow government, right? A form of government where the real leaders are hidden or merely known. That's the definition of a cryptocracy, right? A form of government where the real leaders are hidden or merely known or merely unknown. There's nothing that we need to argue about that, my nigga. You don't know who is running this shit. And the conspiracy is to play the game about, we don't know who's running it, so we're going to run this shit into the ground, and you're not going to be able to blame us, because the same people who are looking to look under the rock to see who's running it are being puppeted by the puppeteers running it. So the conspiracy is the conspiracy to find the conspiracy, and that's the conspiracy. So you can guarantee yourself that it's going to be 4 more years of conspiracy, and then 4 more years after that, and then 4 more years after that. We are in the new age of conspiracy, my nigga. They have totally new conspiracies to replace the old ones. That's why they opened up the files and got rid of all of the old conspiracies before they started the new one, with C.K. Kirkland being the most preeminent conspiracy of them all to lead the pack. Because niggas going to be talking about that goddamn shit for the next 44 years, or for all of Pluto and Aquarius. So, yes, onions It's layers upon layers upon layers. So shadow government, right? And ironically enough, right, as they show you, and I don't even make this shit up. Look, in brackets, right? They got conspiracy theory. So that's all they keep talking about. This government is on TV every day talking about the shadow government as if they're not in the government, right? Because shadow government, conspiracy theory. What does that say? A cryptocracy, right? A cryptocracy. So when Tucker Carlson comes out and says, "Yeah, y'all, I don't do crypto because the shit was founded by the CIA," and they like, this nigga's crazy. The shadow government is called a cryptocracy. Not the technocracy, not the theology, not the theocracy, which is a government ruled by God, or technocracy, which is a government ruled by the technocrats, right? This is called a cryptocracy, which is a government that's ruled by secret. The shadow government, also referred to as cryptocracy, secret government, or invisible government, is a family of theories based on the notion that real and actual political power resides not only with publicly elected representatives, but with private individuals who are exercising power behind the scenes beyond the scrutiny of democratic institutions. According to this belief, the official elected government is subservient to the shadow government, which is the true executive power. Some of the groups proposed by these theories are consulting the shadow government include central banks, Freemasons, communists, Nazis, the Rothschilds, intelligence agencies, think tanks, organized Jewry, the Vatican, Jesuits, or Catholics in general, as well as secret societies, moneyed interests, extraterrestrial, Satanists, and global elite and supranational organizations who seek to manipulate policy in their own interests or in order to serve a larger agenda that is hidden from the general public. Okay? And in my observation of, it's a thin line between the MAGA and woke, right? I was able to deduce that both of them share in common a Bible, in conscious community too. Conscious community, get in here, right? This is about you as well. You're the underlayer behind all of this shit, right? Behold the pale horse is the Bible of the new conspiracy age. That is the text that's shared between both communities that operates as their Bible. Okay? It says here, Milton William Cooper claimed that a shadow government was in cooperation with extraterrestrial aliens. His 91 book, Behold a Pale Horse, influential amongst UFO and militia circles, describes the doings of the secret world government and a variety of other covert activities associated with the Illuminati's declaration of war upon the people of America. Cooper claimed to have seen secret documents while in the Navy describing governmental dealings with aliens. Cooper linked the Illuminati with his beliefs that extraterrestrials were secretly involved with the U.S. government, but later retracted these claims. He accused Dwight Eisenhower of negotiating a treaty with extraterrestrials in 1954, then establishing an inner circle of Illuminati to manage relationships with them to keep their presence a secret from the general public, right? With all of the Anunnaki talk from our community now, right, we can see that we belong, we're tethered under the roof, the ceiling of the William Cooper-esque Behold a Pale Thought, Behold a Pale Horse is our Bible, right? Because consciousness has been hijacked by the quote-unquote conspiratorial community. It has been effectively hijacked by the Anunnaki conspiratorial community. If you ain't talking Anunnaki, nigga, you ain't conscious. Right? It almost got taken over by the flat earth community. But the Anunnakis, yeah, they got a foothold in this shit. You know what I'm saying? If you're not from Tartaria, nigga, yeah, ain't none of your shit popping. Ain't none of your pieces hitting. You know what I'm saying? You part of that old, drawn out black history consciousness or conspiracy, right? Your shit has no bearing in this world. Right? You're not part of the new age of consciousness or the new age of conspiracy. My bad. The new conspiracy age. Everything is a conspiracy theory now. Conspiracies are all over the White House, turning fringe ideas into dangerous policy. America's institutions are crumbling under the weight of deep suspicion and the lasting effects of COVID isolation. Online echo chambers are getting harder to escape, and generative AI is altering the fabric of truth. MIT Technology Review helps break down how this moment in changing science and technology and how we can move through it all. Right? So this is an important piece of literature to read. You can find it online at the MIT Technology Review. I'll read through some of it with you. But yeah, like I said, it gives you a little backdrop into the history of conspiracy, and it goes way further than just JFK's unaliving. You know what I mean? It goes all the way back to Europe with the collective consciousness about international Jewry being the head of conspiracy and a document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which they love telling you has been disproved. But if you look at this shit, same way if you look at the Willie Lynch letter and you see disproved, alleged, false or not, my nigga, have they followed this script, right? Can we deduce for ourselves by looking at this, is the script being followed to a T, right? So the cooking commences, right? And this is, again, I shout out to my brother, Carlo Montenegro, right? I may have miscalculated. Right? There you go. You heard it? I may have miscalculated. You feel me? I very much think that we're going to see, because these stories compound with one another. The story that was inundating the timeline yesterday was hip hop has not been in the top 40 for the first time in 35 years, right? Shout out to my brother, Maroon. Yeah, the Iceman cometh, nigga. The Iceman cometh. So, the Iceman cometh. We are deducing that Drake is going to drop tomorrow, right? And he's going to tap into the energy, this 44 energy in the 44th strong of the calendar year by dropping the Iceman, right? Who is giving homage to this individual right here, right? He's tapping into this energy by naming his project the Iceman. You know what I'm saying? And the Toronto Blue Jays may very well clinch tomorrow, right? And also you're going to get the drop on the same day. The people are begging for Drake to come back, right? Because they noticed that the void in hip hop not being on the charts is directly linked to your boy, right? Getting taken out of the game. And his stimulus package was responsible for hip hop having such a prominence on these charts for the last 15 years. So the industry is now crying for his return, his inevitable return, because they have to restore things back to the way that they were, because Kendrick destroyed the industry and did not rebuild it. And there's repercussions for that, right? And niggas is like, Snap is running out, and these artists need a stimulus. Yes. So we watched the party die, and we watched nothing grow from the fucking soil of it. You know what I'm saying? There has not been a resurrection of the art form. The party's just dead. Y'all seen this nigga Young Thug on stage without a shirt on? Right? That's what the party looks like. If the party was a person, it would be Young Thug on stage with no shirt on. Or Master P dancing in space, in place, like doing doing the bout it dance, right? If hip hop was a person, it would look like Master P on stage doing the bout it dance, right? Moving, but not going nowhere. That's how it would look, right? Then you look at the metrics, and I wish I had the post because Master P had the nerve to put it up, but they don't understand the science. They don't understand the science of visuals. They don't understand the science. New Orleans experienced the 20th anniversary of Katrina. Now, I didn't watch the whole shit from the beginning to the end. Y'all tell me, was there any homage paid to the people who we lost in Katrina at the versus battle? Y'all help me out. Save me here because I'm slow. Right? I didn't watch the shit from the beginning to the end. And I don't want to be throwing this shoulder out again and shit and just making accusations. Was any time, did they have a moment of time? Did they have a moment of silence for the people that they lost in Katrina? Nah. Right? Right. Then we seen Melissa come right behind that. Right? Category 5. Ancestors is not too pleased. But we're going to chalk that up to conspiracy. But that entire demonstration was an ode to Headbuster. That entire demonstration was an ode to the Steppers. That entire demonstration was an ode to people like Baby's younger brother who was putting in that work in the streets, who will be classified as a serial murder. They got more than 4 or 5 bodies. And these are the people that are celebrated. But then Master P takes acceptance to them saying that America is, or the top 10 dangerous cities, right? And New Orleans is one of them. And as if we don't understand the politics that's taking place here, right? It was a celebration of Headbuster music. Right? But he don't understand, right? He don't understand how one connects to the other. And we're living in a conspiratorial administration where they don't have to come with the proof, nigga. They already told you it's alternative facts. As long as they can control media and create facts as they go along. Truth is subjective to this nigga's Twitter feed. You still don't get it. It don't have to be true in an alternative reality. They are dealing with alternative facts. Everything that they do is hyperbole. If they say it is true. That's the magic. That's the caucasity, nigga. That's what they fought for. If they say it is true, you know why? Because you niggas kept going online with facts in an age of conspiracy. What happened when they opened up the floodgates for people to have more information? People started what? Immediately going towards proving or disproving conspiracy. Because that's the things that people wanted to know the most. Yo, we want to prove who we are because regular information and regular education has us believing that our history started after slavery. And you still ain't tell the truth. So the minute that the internet became available, the minute that these information highways opened up, right? People immediately ran to alternative information and education The Trump administration is like, we ain't teach these niggas that. Where did they learn it from? Why are they online making our people look bad? Right? Why they on Twitter whooping us? Why do women have the confidence to get in front of these police face during these protests? Where did they get the audacity and the wherewithal? Oh, it's some niggas debating from Harlem. It's some niggas telling them that their melanin is popping. It's some niggas talking about black girl magic. Where are they learning this stuff from? The internet? Oh, we got to do something about that. Oh, we can't do nothing about it? Why? Oh, it's too big, it's too vast, it's an ocean. Oh, we got to clean that shit up. They like, damn, but that's like trying to clean up the microplastics out the ocean. They like, where there's a will, there's a way. Get all them niggas on the phone and get them in a group chat. Matter of fact, get them in a room. Right? We're going to take them to the level 20 basement of the goddamn White House and show them these aliens, nigga. Let the aliens talk to them. Somebody needs to convince these niggas that something needs to be done. So now they created ways to crawl the internet, right? And remove Bobby, and remove Phil, and remove Sabi, and remove Francis Cress, and remove Delbert. And you ain't even see it. You ain't even see it. It went over your head. You feel me? And then they introduced the concept of debating as being the cornerstone of democracy, nigga. Right? And the only flack or the only thing that we got from our community initially was the flack of why you niggas always debating in Harlem. That's the cornerstone of democracy, I'm finding out, though. Like, that's what them niggas got from the Greeks. Like, democracy is not democracy if you can't debate. Right? And I'm not a great debater. But I remember the arguments that our community had against our people for simply debating. So let me just do this real quick. The Dodgers, right? And my gematria, the Dodgers is 432, right? Shout out to my brother Mike. Yeah. We may have been the home for debates, but I never really was a fan of debates. And I was vocal of, I wasn't quiet about that. I used to be like, yeah, okay. When are we going to go to Oxford and, when we going to debate them folks? Like, the warm-up sessions is cool, but the real debates need to take place in these institutions. That's what we was qualifying one another for, to see who was going to go and battle, the worthwhile battles, not disproving one another on the corner. I mean, it was cute, you know what I'm saying? But there was bigger fish to fry, if you will. And it wasn't necessarily, Sarah Suit and Seti. No disrespect to Seti. No disrespect to Polite. But that thing was supposed to go a lot further. And we spoke about it and agreed upon it. But it never got out of Harlem for whatever reason. You know what I mean? It became a crutch. And it never jumped. It never graduated. And Polite went on to do other things. Hold on. I'm sending myself something where those debates seem more like about money and ego rather than bringing heaven on earth with the information. It was a little bit of both. Again, we were entering the internet age, and it wasn't Blog Talk, right? People saw your visuals, and these were people's opportunity to shine. Some people for the first time in their lives, right? They was getting attention. And again, it was also about you edge a person out in the debate with your personality. It wasn't all about the information anymore. And that's not entirely their fault. That's not entirely. they was getting, again, this when niggas started reading this when comments and views took over. And people are now reading comments and they're being insecure about their appearance, or they're feeling themselves for the first time in a way in which they weren't prior to that, because they were being felt. You know what I'm saying? And we can't discredit the power of being felt. You know, so this is what, you know, this the metric. This becomes the new metric, and it's what people went for. And it benefits us nothing at this point now to fault people for that, because we see that the whole world, if given the opportunity, goes for that. Influencers came after that, my nigga. Prior to that, it was the great debaters. They was the influencers. Let's keep it a buck. So I just showed you Dodgers is 432, right? The hurts of the planet. But we also see hip hop. Hip hop is 432, right? 432. 432 also means world. Let's go. Let's see if we can pull that up. Right? All right. I didn't send the world one yet. Right? I didn't send the world one yet. But yeah, look at Young Pharaoh. Look at all of them, right? And shout out to them brothers, man. Shout out to them brothers. IWAS is 432. That's a whole nother conversation. We ain't gonna do that to y'all. Shout out to Red. He got a whole IWAS thing out there, right? So hip hop was always destined to be a global art form, right? For the voice of the voiceless. Can y'all look at this? I really need you to look at it. Screenshot it if you need to. It's gematria. Gematria means geometry in Greek. And my hypothesis is that we're dealing with words as alphanumerics, which means that words have a numeric frequency to them because they're based on what? Hebrew, which is naturally alphanumeric. How do we know? Aleph Beth is the alphabet. So we know that words have a numerical equivalency to them. You know what I'm saying? The numerical equivalency attaches them. Like if I say that my name is Paul, let's say that Paul behind the coding equals the number 44, then you see me resonating with things that also are identical to 44, such as the fact is like Aries. I'm an Aries moon and an Aries rising, right? You look at my chart, it's at 44 minutes and shit like I got a lot of 44s going on, right? But let's say that I was the red pill and 44 means blood. Then you'd be like, oh, Mars, Aries, blood. Oh, it all makes sense. So that's the equivalency of when we look at the architecture of these words and the number frequency behind them, because there wasn't, at first it was not the word. At first it was sound, and sound creates vibration, and vibration creates form. That's how the universe was made. Not with a word, nigga, with a sound, okay? A utterance, like Om, okay? So in this demonstration, hip hop equals 432, which is the hertz of the quote unquote heart, right? But, and when we find equivalency that registers as more than just one number, like they two. So it's the same in English and it's the same in simple gematria. Simple gematria is simple gematria, right? That's like 1 equals A, B equals 2. That's simple gematria. You know what I'm saying? So we see that there's a correlation and a connection in both of these same way. So hip hop equal 432 and the number 72, and so does world. Yes, and Yahweh itself means the 4-letter word. It's a tetragrammaton. It's a mathematical equation. And when you break 26 up, you get 13 plus 13. And when you bust down 13, you get 4. So even Yahweh is a 44 resonator. But so is everything. Okay? So hip hop and world share the same frequency. So hip hop was destined. It was destined to be an art form that garnered, that encapsulates the world, that attaches itself to the world, that grabs the attention of the world, that becomes a voice for the world, that unifies the world. Our beautiful, majestic creation, hip hop, right? What connections and correlations does it have when we look at 3-Eye Atlas, right? 3-Eye Atlas is an echo from the WOW signal that came in 1977 on August 15th, 1977. The blackout of New York happens on July 13th, 1977. So that blackout is responsible for the technological advances in hip hop. This is when we got turntables, mixers, speakers, through retail reparations, right? Shit went black and dark. And then when the lights came on, there was no longer any equipment in the window. You get it? And it was all uptown now. And all of a sudden, we had access to things. We had access to technology to do what we do naturally, which is create, right? And the melanin starts kicking in and niggas start scratching and creating all sorts of stuff. Hip hop is born, right? The version that we know today, right? They crack the charts, you feel me? And a trend starts. And then shout out to my brother Maroon Waters, I believe his name is. I saw him do a comprehensive breakdown earlier this rising, and he was speaking about hip hop, and he said that in 1990, the song that cracked the charts was Just a Friend by Bismarck. May Bismarck forever rise in power, be respected, and you know, Bismarck was one of my favorite artists growing up. You know what I mean? Because the lightheartedness that he represented when we were going through some very tough times, we were going through some very real times, we would go through some very challenging times, and Bismarck was like, you know, he was the oddball, he was the weird person. We identified, or a lot of us identified with Bismarck, you know, still being able to be cool, still had a seat at the cool table, but was being himself in every way imaginable. That was a lot of reaffirmingness. So he explained in 1990, when they say that hip hop hasn't cracked the charts, the top 40 for the first time in 35 years, the song that cracked the charts, that put us on top, was Bismarck, Just a Friend, right? It was a smash. Oh, baby. It was a hip hop sing song. He was singing in his hip hop. One of the first times we seen an artist do that and get away with it. At least that was the first time I had seen it when I watched the video. And the last chart-topping song that we saw was Luther last year, which was also a sing-song hip-hop. Kendrick and SZA, right? The other Scorpio. Shout out to SZA. Okay? So, what an observation that these two songs that cracked the top 40, right? I know Luther sat on the top #1 for quite some time. It had an unprecedented run last year. These were not your traditional hip hop songs, and they weren't speaking about the things. They weren't gangster raps. You know what I mean? They were fun, feel good. In the case of Luther, somewhat melancholy, introspective songs. You know what I'm saying? But Kendrick killed the party, and the party is dead and stinking to such a degree that people are begging for Drake to come back, right? And this is why I definitely think that we'll probably see him release his album tomorrow. Okay? Drake is the opposite of hip-hop, ironically enough. He's 234. He's the mirror of hip-hop, right? He's the mirror of hip-hop. He's the reverse of it. You know what I mean? He's the backwardness of hip-hop, right? But still needed and necessary because hip hop just ain't hip hop anymore. Or it seems they're saying that rap is not rap anymore without Drake and his stimulus packages. So he is going to pay homage to Iceman, right? And come out possibly tomorrow with the World Series being won by a quote unquote Toronto Blue Jays. Shout out to my brother Sauce. Shout out to my brother Athletics for having me last Tuesday do a presentation about blue magic, about the color blue and how that is the connective tissue between melanated magic on both continents, whether it's Heka coming from Memphis Kemet or whether it is Mojo coming from the Delta, Mississippi, Memphis region of Tennessee. The color blue is the connective tissue, right? So when we speak about their ability to utilize alternative facts to create narratives and scenarios, you've seen this president put tweets up that have not been verified, and that's enough evidence that he needs to rile his base up to send military to different to different cities, right? And then openly get on air and speak about how he's declaring war on citizens of this country. Okay? So New Orleans, Memphis, Tennessee, Baton Rouge, Detroit, Baltimore, Fort Lauderdale. Come on, them niggas is doing up there. Fort Lauderdale? For real? They be kicking up dust in Fort Lauderdale now? Come on, son. What are y'all doing? Houston, San Bernardino, Philly, Cleveland, Ohio, right? So this will be the Iceman hit list. The Iceman cometh, okay? The Iceman cometh. It's going to be a long winter. And this is going to be the hit list. You feel me? We're no longer in a realm where things have to be proven. There doesn't need to be any veracity, right? There doesn't need to be any more veracity, right? How you going to tell people that New Orleans is not synonymous with head busting and big steppers? And we just had the verses with the head busters and the big steppers celebrating their catalog that has been around for 30 plus years, that they have made upwards to $1 billion off of promoting head busting and big stepping. Now you're going to turn around and say, nah, not my city. We really don't get how this shit is being played. You know what I'm saying? We really don't get it, huh? We really don't get it. We really don't get it. And we think it's a game. And we can't put nothing together. We can't everything is disconnected with us. But we the ones with melanin. And melanin is a conductor that brings all things together, right? That's what melanin does as a superpower. Melanin it brings all things together and synthesizes them. So how come we cannot disseminate? How come we see news and it's so separate? Why don't we utilize this one mind to put everything in perspective? The way that the melanin in your eye was prepared to do when you look at things that collapse waves into particles. So they got this graph up there, food stamps by ethnicity. And the common denominator that we're missing out on, right, that we fail to observe and realize is that white America belongs to communities, right? They belong to communities. You feel me? They don't have a history of not sticking together. right? They don't have a history of not being borderline resourceful, and so do we, right? We're very resourceful as a people. But the difference that we can see now from the 70s or the 80s, we don't know our neighbors. We don't trust our neighbors. We have a level of mistrust in this community that's at an all-time high. Our pettiness factor, because of social media, is also accelerated at an all-time high. We pocket watching like we've never pocket watched before, right? So who's going to be the one that steps up, that fills in the blanks, right? In terms of supporting their people, in terms of supporting another family, and it's not transactional. You know why your daddy was a Rolling Stone, my nigga, because he had extra. And you know what extra could get us in this community? Extra, nigga. And you know what extra I'm talking about. Why you think that it won't be exploited? It's already being exploited. It's already being exploited. They're saying that the price for box has been it's been totally deflated, right? It's not an inflation. Not in that category. This is Scorpio, and I'm sure that y'all ready and grown enough to have this conversation. Right? What you think's gonna happen? What you think's gonna happen? People gonna do something strange for some change. This time around, though, it's gonna be the men and the women. Right? No. Not go back to 40, nigga. It's 40's the floor. 40's the floor. It's already at 40. No. It was 40 during C19. I was in Miami. It was 40 and under during C19. And they was spinning the block, nigga. They was catching them Italians and the bald head European men. And they was spinning the block. 40's the floor, nigga. It's going under 40. It's going under 40. Okay? 40's the floor. 40 might get you a combo deal. 4 wings and a biscuit. Pump the ground for 39. I wish that was true. Right? So once again, we're concerned with how other people are receiving benefits. We're concerned with how other people have utilized what specifically was put in place for you because of the sacrifice that was made by your ancestors. This is the shit that Dr. Claude Anderson keep talking about, right? The sacrifice was made for you. The blood was spilled for you. They changed the wording and made it into minorities or what have you. How come white families receive more government assistance than you? And the government assistance, the social services were put in place specifically for you. But you think that it's a flex point to say, oh, they're getting more of our stuff than we're getting for ourselves. But you still got to pay the price. Because when they speak about welfare queens, when they speak about people that are, tethered to the system for assistance, they never mention their own, right? You're not going to see Hasidics on this particular chart, right? But they live in subsidized housing in New York and Brooklyn in particular, right? They receive WIC and food stamps, but they also run the food banks. And their projects is clean. They don't got pissy elevators. But they work on a diamond district. I wouldn't call it slavery. Again, these are subsidized trade-offs that were negotiated in particular on behalf of a people who got entered into a system that was not categorically favorable to them. They were at a disadvantage because they were not at an equal playing field, right? And then there was a sacrifice that was made. And that sacrifice is named MLK. And that blood that was spilled in Memphis was some powerful blood. And it opened portals. And out of those portals, you receive things, regardless of whether you want to receive, accept them, see them for what they are. We have all of us at some point have benefited, received, or secondarily at least received some level of government assistance. And that shit looks like, even if you didn't get the stamps, maybe you pulled up to a crib and mama with the 3 elbows, she put some of that work into that food and you ate some, right? We all guilty. And then, knowing where your tax dollars go to, you're less reluctant about your tax dollars going to buy bombs to, remove children off of the planet than you are for saying, oh, some of these taxes have been subsidized to feed families in need. Right? That's very American of you. You feel me? And therein lies the problem. Right? Are we so American? Are we so much citizens of this corporation that we have totally devoured our own humanity? Like, when are you children of God? What does that look like? Right? And what commandments do you follow first, if that's the case? Who's commanding you? Right? You're down here doing the work for who? Yourself, your family, your country, or your God? Or have you figured out a way to do them all? Right? And Danielle, can you please DM me your number, because I do not have it and I need to get in contact with you about Bob, please. Please, I've been kicking myself. I've done horrible in that regard. I've done horrible, right? And I want to do right. So we can't have our cake and eat it too, in regards to what we're willing to see as truth and what we're willing to ignore wholeheartedly altogether. You know what I'm saying? I put a report up about how media reports differently, based on the reality of what's going on. We live in a realm of alternative news, and that has been the metric since 2016. It has not gone back to what we conceive to be whatever it was prior to that. It's not going to go back. The toothpaste is out the tube, and politicians have figured out how to utilize that to their discretions. So if it bleeds, it leads. Stop trusting media outlets to disseminate you news that's redeeming, that's rewarding. That's not how news operates. They sell advertisements, nigga. Right? News is an ad-driven business. In order for me to qualify from an ad sponsor, the money that I'm asking for them, I have to show them two things in media: attention and retention. Meaning that I have to show them why the eyeballs are here on this page, and I got to show them that the eyeballs stuck around for long enough for me to sell them something. And then I can get more money. And that's how media operates. That's how media operates, not just the news. That's how media operates, y'all. So if it bleeds, it leads. Why? We live, and especially it's going to bleed more. We already have been conditioned, and they have shown us through social experimentation that we have been totally desensitized from the most egregious of unalivings, right? We were scrolling like this during C-19. Oh, shit, 40,000 people? Oh, that's damn too bad. Wasn't me, though. Shit. Oh, wow. Oh, they got bodies in the 18-wheelers on deep freeze? Shit, too bad for them. Shit. I'm trying to see where they got them free hamburgers at for them shots. Oh, look at that baby's hair roll. Damn, too bad for them people. Wasn't us. Are they doing what in the Congo? I'm about to get this new iPhone. I don't know what the fuck they talking about. Nigga, that's who we are. They got us with their hands in the cookie jar. Why would they slow up now? Right? And these is people who live for this shit. Because let's go back to the conspiracies that people chose to ignore. Right? In 2016, they showed you the Podesta files out of Wikipedia. And the Podesta files told you that the elite, specifically of the Democratic Party, were dealing with spirit cooking, ritualistic unaliving of whatever they were saying in them reports. And then you went into their cribs and they showed you the pictures. And then niggas called on to Epstein. Shout out to Red Pill. Red Pill been telling us about Epstein since 07. Since 07. No surprises here, my nigga. You just now catching on about Hillary. No surprises here. Thank God. Thank God. Yes, my conspiracy theorist master teachers been told us that shit eons ago. Eons ago, right? Eons ago. Especially like 01 when they was cooking Bill Clinton coming to Harlem. Like, were you not alive during the Clinton era? You don't know about Arkansas Mena. You don't know about none of that stuff. You don't know about none of that stuff. You don't know about him being a cocaine cowboy and running the coke. They showed you a movie. It's called American Made. It had Tom Cruise, one of the top actors in it. Y'all missed that too. See, and then they be like, there go them niggas from New York talking down to us. You know what I'm saying? We just country folk, like, stop talking to us like that. I'd be like, yo, you must learn it's just certain shit that we need to know. And we spread gossip about one another. We spread rumors and innuendos, and that shit be at lightning speed. But the information that's truly necessary, that's needed, that's redeeming, you know what sort of agents I was called for telling people, yeah, don't volunteer yourself to vote between the devil and Shaitan. It's just not worth it. Like, why would you want blood on your hands? And then they blame us for Trump getting in office. That be the response. Now, like, damn, son, you was right all along. Damn, son, that was some hell of some hindsight. God damn, where was you pulling from? Every one of these regimes, we're supposed to volunteer and line up. When are you going to demand more? Right? Because you don't know what's out there for you. You have no idea. We have not prioritized it. We have not even like fantasized what it might look like for ourselves to receive something different other than the BS. So when are we going to put ourselves in line of receivership for something different to happen to us and for us? We have no idea. We have no idea. Look, I didn't even...
A lot of people know how YouTube got created because of the Janet Jackson clip from the Super Bowl. And so you couldn't find that footage nowhere. The actual incident was in line with a Celtic sun ritual called the embolic ceremony, which is a lactating ceremony that deals with fertility. The nipple is about fertility and giving birth. So that nipple gave birth to YouTube.
I mean, is it wrong to look at it like that? Right? Because, like, I've been talking about Super Bowl rituals all the way since then. Right? Is it wrong to look at it? Is it wrong to just simplify this shit and to look at it like that? To be like, yo, they did it during a lactating ritual. It was purposeful. Right? And the way that niggas was running to the internet to see that woman's nipple is what birthed and gave birth, burgeoning birth, right? This is the article we did on augmented reality. This was from 15 years ago. This was from 15 years ago. Like, you have to forgive me if I'm not caught by surprise to say none of this stuff is new, right? How we choose to deal with it might be different, but as none of this stuff catching us off guard, we were properly prepared and trained by the best conspiracy theorists of them all, right? When we were being castigated for giving attention to these things that was called conspiracy theory, right? I've been speaking openly about Albert Pike. You feel me? They just put the statue back up, right? Once they got into DC, once they rattled the cage, they were sure that they were going to put back Albert Pike. Why? Because you're seeing the resurrection and the return of the Klan. You're seeing the restoring of it. You're seeing the Third and the Fourth Reich. You feel me? None of this stuff is happenstance, and none of it is catching us off guard because we were properly prepared. I know exactly what to look for. I know exactly how to call my plays. You know what I'm saying? The culture of conspiracy, according to Michael Barkun in the 2003 book, A Culture of Conspiracy, the conspiracist's interpretation of events rests on three assumptions. Everything is connected, everything is premeditated, and nothing is as it seems. Following that third law means that widely accepted and documented history is by definition suspect, and alternative explanations, however arbitrary, are more likely to be true. Now, as much as they may speak down on that particular ideology, the history in the last 4 years has showed us that that's exactly what it's been. You know what I'm saying? It has not yet missed. So why should we deduce anything different? Right? From a general observation that has not failed yet. Right? One can only gather. Okay? Peace, brother.
Peace.
So, anybody got any 3-Eye Atlas updates? And shout out to Keebalon. You know, I got so much more information, that I have been able to extrapolate these last 10 to 15 days. I'm heavily anticipating going back in and doing another show based on the stuff that I have been able to find. You feel me? Got a lot of information, got a lot of stuff. And even, I don't know if anybody, again, I would be very, I would, explain to me what you think, right? You, and then this speaks about that. This speaks about the conspiracy thing, right? That we attribute so much power to these people, right? That we give them so much power in our mind that we think that they're capable of anything. So you mean to tell me that these people are using a beam and a projection? Where's their camera at in space that they're beaming this thing that you're looking at through a telescope for you to believe that this is Project Bluebeam? Let's talk about it. Because I need to know how much power you're giving away, right? Because I might ask you to give me some. I might need some, right? I might need something super duper to happen this calendar strong for my 44s is not hitting enough. I need some next level shit to happen. I need some real magic to take place. So I might need you to give me a little something of what you got. So please tell me, in your mind, You think that these people are projecting this image? You think that they're responsible for this? And this is where the tire meets the road. This is what I was speaking about last night. Like you don't have dreams. None of this stuff comes to you in the dream realm, and then you're not able to get up and verify it. Are those people in your thoughts too? Do they control your dreams as well? Because they possibly can. That's not outside of the realm of possibilities, right? But I just need you to help me with this, because everything now that people who have just been introduced to conspiracy, they have, again, conscious talking tropes. Project Bluebeam is one of the main conscious talking tropes. Okay? One of the main conscious talking tropes is people relinquish, they with the Anunnaki shit, but when it comes to things that they can pick a telescope up and see, Project Bluebeam. Right? If I said Anunnaki, though, Project Bluebeam. For interstellar objects moving through the cosmos that you can look and track. Project Bluebeam. Again, this is why all conspiracies are not made the same. And there's a thin line between woke and MAGA. And you have to know, for the most part, who you are extracting your conspiracies from. Because they ain't nothing but conspiracies, right? The world is not devoid of conspiracies. It's conspiracies all across the board. Granted, but who are you listening to, and where are they getting theirs from, right? So you have to qualify your conspiracies going forward, because you might end up in the wrong conspiracy hole and get tagged in the bag because of that, right? You might get designated as woke, nigga, and they send in the drones. It's a culture war. It's going to be a real one, too. So this is not the time to be misfiring in public. You know what I'm saying? You really got to have a handle on what you say and what you think. You really got to have a handle on what you say and what you think, because it could put you in a very precarious place. You feel me? So, yeah, there are some people who have had real experiences, who have had real communications and real downloads, you know what I mean, pertaining to this galactic event. I want to connect with some of them people to see if people have anything in common. This is how you can shift through certain things. You had a dream that said the same thing as you had a dream that said the same thing as you had a dream. All right, well, let's put that in the pot and let's double down on that. And I'm not being facetious. I want to help us navigate reality in the midst of an inundation of conspiracy theories and a lot of noise, right? So if we truly are in line for receivership, we can receive what's ours and allow the other people to munch on garbage. Allow the other people to chew on plastic. Pause. You know what I'm saying? But what's of nutritional value, what's yours, you should have that. You should have access to it. You know what I'm saying? Everything is not for everyone, but I want the best things in life for y'all. Because I want them for myself. So I want them from y'all naturally. Because we're here. We connect with one another. Right? And, yeah. So I'm not being facetious. I'm not talking down. Right? I just want to operate in my capacity as like a brother, to be like, yo, all conspiracies are not created equal. And we have to know where we're extracting ours from. And we got to play it all the way through to be like, does this benefit me in any way? Am I out here promoting somebody else's conspiracy that props them up, right? That speaks to their fragility and helps their ideology about their supremacy, right? Because you have to see yourself in the midst of this conversation. You have to see, well, how does it connect and resonate with me? Am I on the outside looking in? That's it. You know what I mean? I want us to be in direct receivership of the good things in life, the blessings, the blessings. You know, not the things that's going to be somewhat against us. Right? So I personally felt like they're gonna run it up to 7 games. You know, my Law 44 sports analysis, my brother Carlo, he swears that they're gonna take it tomorrow and Drake is gonna drop the album, The Iceman, and it's gonna usher in his embrace of MAGA. He's gonna go full MAGA on niggas because where else is he gonna go? Right? And he has to go back to the confines of the Zionists. They want him to come home. You know what I'm saying? Kelly, yeah. Kelly Kalotny. And I need some of our brujas, some of our channelers, some of our diviners, some of our astrologists. I need y'all to get on this. I need y'all. I need the melanated. I need the women specifically. Primordial, big mamas. I need y'all to get in front of this conversation. And, you know, what does it say to y'all? You know, what does it say specifically to, what does it say to you about us? Not to them about them, because they're going to call it what they've been called. They're going to say it's Pleiadian, it's tall Nordics on it, reptilian. They're going to say all that like they're supposed to. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to give you something that's redeeming for you. They operate in snatching your chain every chance they get. Why would they stop now? Why now? Right? They're going to say the Pleiadians are here. And interestingly enough, you know, it connects to Pleiades. It does. Right? In a cosmic sense. It connects to a lot of things. But now's not the time for us to be getting unscientific or unscholarly or uncosmic, right? Project Blue Beam is Project Blue Beam. I'm gonna show you what Project Blue Beam ain't, right? And this is the only way we can only contrast and compare. I can show you what my ancestors look like. Shit, I can only speak for myself. This ain't Project Blue Beam, right?
I'm Philip Muhammad, and last Friday
This is
evening,
August
on
13,
August 13th,
2010.
during my most recent interview.
Right, so everybody knows in 2010 is when I was telling whoever would listen that I was being followed by the craft. I was having communication with this craft. I also was talking to it. I was, you know, it was the homie. It was doing whatever I asked it to do for the sake of me showing people that it was here, right? Not for the sake of me showing off. Because it wasn't a flex point. You know what I'm saying? I found out the niggas was terrified of whatever they don't understand or can't control, even though I'm showing them, like, this ain't about me, you can get some control out of it. You talk to it, communicate with it, get past your fears. It never happened, not to this day. So I was leaving Pathmark on Atlantic Avenue. I had Polite in the back seat, and he was going to cook for a lecture, and I had to do a blog talk show. So we was racing back, and I saw the shit pop up, and I'm like, yo, like, I thought that this with the master teacher, I thought that this is what they have been orientated to know, understand, not just talk about, right? But to identify, to communicate. I thought the excitement would be there. And the nigga wasn't excited. Like, he was a little more scared than anything. And that was a eureka moment for me. That I was like, damn. And none of this shit what I thought it to be. But luckily, on the other side of town, a brother from the NOI, interestingly enough, caught the footage, right? August 13, 2010. He caught the footage this day. And this is what it is. And this is how the ship looked. At least the one that I seen, that I was communicating
This
with.
object had been disputed by enthusiasts who believe that it was the planet Venus or a star, and others like myself who believe that it's not, a star. Melissa and I checked the skies. She was like, "Wow, what's that?" And I said, "Well, it's not a star because there's no other stars that you can see out there. It's by itself. We're not at the part of the night where you can see all the stars yet."
It wasn't.
Anyway, there was no other stars out there.
It came out in the daytime.
This object just appeared instantly after I put the camera down. It wasn't there when we were filming the scene. It was sometime between 6 and 7, by the way. Furthermore, the object was moving about on its own and not on its axis, as would any planet.
Mm-hmm. So look, y'all could go and look at it for yourself. UFO proven to be real. Flying saucer changes shape over Brooklyn. Venus UFO 8/13 2010. Right? GWE-TV network. Shout out to the good brother from the nation. Okay? So, this why, 15 years removed, right? The frustration for people such as myself with this slow-ass community that don't want to play catch-up, but always want to run to the conspiracy or Project Bluebeam or whatever else the hell they talking about. Or Anunnakis or shit like that. But totally miss, right? The shit that's sitting up there waiting for niggas to wake the fuck up and stop being hoes on this planet, right? This is the shit that befuddles and baffles me. That at a time like this, when you might be getting one hell of an assist from the universe because you don't got nothing else for this administration but some fucking placards, right? Some goddamn placards or some social media posts. And these niggas is attempting to do to you what they did to the Palestinians over there, right? You don't got no smoke for them. And then when you potentially can be getting an alley-oop from a part of the crevice of the universe, Sagittarius A, where we've been told you that our people come from, nobody seems unified. No one is ready. No one is in their imagination. Niggas is talking about conspiracies. And not conspiring to win, not conspiring to be assisted from beyond, not conspiring to be the same cosmic beings that niggas did 1,000-hour lectures trying to convince me that we was. 1,000 hours, right? 1,000.